owners. Thank you. It's wonderful to have you here. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you all should be owners. We would love for you to, at some time during the meeting or at the break, if you could sign in, we would love to get your name and your owner number, just so that we know who was here and if there's any follow-up that we need to do. So we greatly appreciate that. We do have owners that are going to be online, so we'll be trying to make sure that they can hear us as well. So there will be a portion of the meeting where we'd ask you to owner form if you have something you'd like to say. If you do choose to do that, if you could speak up so that those who are online can hear you. The fun little thing that was just talking to me is an owl, and it should be able to hear you if you talk loud enough. So that all works. So I'd like to start by just welcoming you all today. This is a tradition here at the co-op where every year we sort of try and let the owners know what's happened in the last year, what we're proud of, what we're excited about, and who we are, so that as we move forward, you can kind of understand where we're going. So we're going to have a series of presentations from the different board directors as well as folks of the staff. And we appreciate you guys being here and listening. There will be a time at the end, again, the owners forum, where we'd like to have questions and we'd like to answer those for you. But if you could hold your questions until then so that we can make sure we get everything in. Okay, great, wonderful. And can you go to the next slide? So this is us. So welcome. And we usually like to start off our meetings with a land acknowledgement. So if you can go to the next slide, we have a really wonderful land acknowledgement that Melissa's going to share with us.
So this land acknowledgement is dedicated to my fellow board members and those who have been on this land long before me and everyone yet to come. And it's this. The yearn to learn has brought me here to mystic, pristine, and damaged land, over field, through skies, waters, visioning to understand the energy of you that guides me through, holding us to task in the things that we do through murky woods, green-filled pastures, pavement-covered cities, graffitied walls plastered. Connection fills my feet and then fills my heart for lessons hard learned, setting you apart from all experiences had right from the start. People met, families and friends. My heart is with you. Gratitude never ends. Let's take a moment for silence, a pause to acknowledge this earth and all that she does.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
That was beautifully written by Melissa. So I'd like to just say it's an example of just the breadth and depth we have here in schools. And thank you so much for sharing your comments with us. If you could go to the next slide. So I'd like to first start off by introducing our board of directors. And Barry, as I say the name, you can click and it'll kind of go through. Okay. So start off, I'm Julie O'Dwyer. I'm the current board president. I've been here on the board for 9 years. We're also joined by Ed Clausen, the vice president, Mark Gibbs, who is currently our board treasurer, Bob Kaplan, who is our board secretary. Larry Cooper, unfortunately, is not here to join us. He will be joining us hopefully virtually. Erica Thompson, she's also a director. Joanna Ornowski, and Melissa Scudder. And the next slide is sort of the other folks who are joining us here today. We have our interim general manager, Barry Haynes, our board administrator, Abby Lazaro, and we'd like to introduce to you, our elections have just been completed. We will be having 2 brand new board members join us, Kevin Bendow and Ernesto Soto. So we're so excited to have some additional folks joining our board and keeping it lively. And next up, we'd like to share with you one of the committees that we have is an EDI committee. And this is a committee that is tri-chaired by both a staff member, a board director, and a member of the management team. And our co-chair, Sarah, has prepared a little video for you to sort of tell you a little bit about what has happened with EDI committee over the past year.
My name is Sarah Huck, and I'm a floor manager at AFC and currently serving as Pride Chair on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, along with Barry Gaines and Melina Barker. In 2022, this committee decided the best way to make an impact on our community is through our relationship. We've had the privilege of knowing and learning so much from so many incredible members of our community, and they've made a huge impact on our perspective and the work we do. First, we'll start with our former EDI and cultural agility consultant, Hilda Montenegro-Fix. Originally, we had intended on offering more EDI training to staff, but COVID raged on and created a logistical nightmare for us. We hope now that protocols have been relaxed, we can try again for 2024. Hilda departed the committee in 2022, but left us with a good sense of direction. She stressed that we needed to improve our communication with staff and find ways to be more transparent, especially when internal incidents arise. She emphasized the importance of diversifying representation on the board, management, and staff. Lived experience is invaluable, and it helps build towards a culture of belonging and support. Not to mention, some studies have shown that businesses identified as more diverse and inclusive are 35% more likely to outperform their competitors. Moving on, at the end of 2022, we sought to add an integral part to the committee. We searched far and wide for a facilitator, but found he was in our backyard at SOU this whole time, Marvin Woodard. He brings a wealth of experience to our committee. He currently serves as Equity Coordinator for Social Justice at SOU's Equity Center. Marvin has done a fantastic job at keeping us organized and on track, and more importantly, he doesn't allow us to get bogged down in the minutiae. He always keeps a positive outlook and helps us to see the bigger picture. In 2022 and early 2023, we've had a few guests. One particularly impactful one was Susan Moen of Jackson County Sexual Assault Response Team. We found out the hard way that we have some faults in some of our policies and procedures concerning sexual harassment and assault at the co-op. Susan helped us pick them apart and offered great words of advice on how to fix them. She also helped us become better trauma informed and taught us how best to respond to sexual assaults at the sexual assault incidents at the co-op. Susan continues to serve the co-op as a confidential advocate and a resource for referring. Another amazing guest that we had was Dr. Brooke Colley, Associate Professor and Chair of the SOU Native American Studies Program. Dr. Colley held a Land Acknowledgement 101 workshop. She did a deep dive into the many aspects that go into an effective land acknowledgement statement. She raised our awareness about potential pushback and provided lots of information about the Indigenous communities in our area, both seated and unceded. Dr. Colley helped connect us with Indigenous organizations in our community and helped us brainstorm the best ways to get back to them. We also had an in-depth conversation about AFC's relationship to Thanksgiving as a holiday and how best to navigate what can be an incredibly polarizing time of year for Indigenous communities. We hope to continue improving our messaging and giving back to Indigenous organizations throughout the North Valley and beyond. A few more additional EDI updates. We've expanded a bit. We recently added 2 bargaining unit employees, 1 non-bargaining unit employee, and an FCA rep to the committee, bringing us to 11 members. We're happy to see staff and management so enthusiastic about this cause. When the committee started 2.5 years ago, one of the first suggestions made was that we find a way to highlight products made by historically minoritized groups. so customers know who they're supporting. After many hours of work and research, we're happy to say we've updated our new vendor form and given vendors the option to indicate that they belong to a demographic that has been historically minoritized, as in BIPOC, LGBTQ, women-owned, Jewish, etc. The next step is to reach out to all of our current vendors and allow them to self-identify if they so choose. And then finally, signage. Another undertaking we've been working on is Project WHEN. Workplace harassment ends now. When surveyed, we've surveyed our staff, and Project WHEN has evaluated their feedback and developed best practices to improve the working environment at AFC. Using their suggestions, we're making changes that will help guide us towards a harassment-free workplace. Going back a bit, we mentioned improving communication. We realized we've been neglecting a significant number of our customers, Spanish-speaking customers. And now we have a widget on our website that displays everything in Espanol. The past year has had its ups and its downs, but anytime we find ourselves dropping the ball or coming up short, that's another learning opportunity and another opportunity to make AFC a better place for everyone. Finally, an affinity group update. I continue to facilitate the AFC affinity group the second Friday of each month. It's a support group for staff and a way to build community among historically minoritized members of our workforce. It's been a great resource for staff. We take some time to get outdoors and share a bite to eat. The affinity group is a place where you can be honest about what you might be going through at work and how your experience at AFC might be different from your peers. It's a great because often these conversations lead to suggestions that can be brought back to the EDI committee and put in motion. To sum up the year, we heard about major burnout at AFC. This was especially the case during the height of COVID and the staffing shortage. Also, unfortunately, many of our staff have been harassed by individuals in our community, whether over COVID precautions or targeted hateful rhetoric aimed towards people of color law. From my observation, turnover rates at the co-op for historically minoritized groups are higher, specifically BIPOC and trans and gender non-conforming staff. But above all, the number one reason for leaving the co-op we hear in the affinity group is low wages. With inflation and exorbitant rental prices, many staff are being priced out of Ashland and are really struggling to get by. That being said, we hope to see improvements at AFC because there's so much potential, especially now that so much new housing is going up in the areas affected by fires. And Ashland as a community is becoming more diverse every day. Again, I'm Sarah Huck, and that was the 2023 Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee update. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
So one of our roles as board directors is to be the fiduciary agents of this organization.
Hey there.
Oh.
My name is
is to be fiduciary agents for this organization. And so I want to turn it over to Mark Gibbs, our board treasurer, and he's going to give you a little bit of sort of where our financial report is over this last year.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So this is just a quick summary, I would say, and starting with kind of a high level overview. So sales trends for the last 12, 13 years. You see, for the most part, we've grown year to year, except for with the exception of a couple of years. And overall, it's a strong kind of base as a comparative matter, looking at other co-ops and grocery businesses. So the top line has been steady, but we're thinking about the future. And as Sarah had noted, labor costs and other costs continue to go up. And the challenge for the next 10 and 20 years will be managing the business well in a more flat kind of sales environment. At least that's our expectation. And you can see that the mix and the percentage is going to be important going forward. Barry, next slide, please. Here is a depiction, a schematic depiction of how our patronage dividend is calculated. But importantly, I think first, just to put some context around the revenue production of the store and where each dollar of revenue goes. So if you just follow the simple schematic and graph, nearly 62% of a dollar of revenue goes to the cost of the item being sold, and then 28.4% goes to everything associated with labor and employee expenses. So nearly 90% of any dollar of revenue goes to those two major categories. And then about 9.5% to 10% covers everything else, all the other expenses of the store, including member discounts, which we'll summarize in the next page. So if you just look through 2022 and you account for all our expenses that each dollar of revenue generates, you came up this past year with a 1.4% net income margin, which isn't that unusual. We're typically been between 1.5% and 2.5% over the last handful of years. The grocery business is a low margin business, so that's not that surprising. And then when you look at that net income, the sales that are generated from owners, that is where the dividend gets generated from. And each year, the board reviews and discusses what percentage of that member patronage should be returned to owners. And over the last, we'll get into that in the next page. Over the last 12, 13 years, there's been a significant portion returned to the community. And I guess just, I'll be curious to see if people have questions around this generally, because we often hear feedback that, gosh, the margins seem really high. And the expensive items can seem high at times at the co-op and other stores as well. And often what's discussed is the 38 to 40% gross margin, which doesn't account for the fully loaded cost of running the store. Barry, the next slide, please. And here another graphical depiction. The bar graphs capture over the last 13 years. The green is the discounts that were produced and returned to owner members. And the blue portion is the dividend that was distributed in each of those years. So over the last 13 years, about, I don't know if other data will pop up there, Barry. Yeah, there we go. So the discounts over the last 13 years totaled $5.5 million in discounts produced for owners, and the dividends were 4.4 million. So about 10+ million was returned to owners in some form or fashion. Of those 13 years, the last 4 years, 100% of the dividend was returned to owners from owner sales. And I think 6 of the last 13 years was about a 50% return, and 1 year was 30%, and 2 years were 40%. So each year, that percentage return is discussed. And in general, as a comparative matter, there's always differences in different co-op grocery outlets, but in general, you see more of the averages around 20 to 50% is returned to owner members. There is a 20% minimum requirement if you're a cooperative to return to owners. Yeah, thanks.
And so the other part of what the board does and what we want to share with you is we go through a really rigorous process of developing a strategic initiative. We're going to start. Ed's going to lead us a little bit about just what that whole process has been and a quick overview of how we come together to develop our strategic initiative.
Thanks, Julie. If you've been shopping in the store for 10 years, it probably looks a lot like it did 10 years ago. And your experience in the aisles and your experience in what's on the shelves is pretty similar. What you don't see so much of is what's going on behind the scenes to look forward into the future. Well, one of the responsibilities of the board is to pay attention to the future. Our aim is to serve you today with a clear eye on the future, recognizing that even in an industry that changes relatively slowly, like groceries and wellness, that it's really important to stay clear about where the opportunities are for the future. Well, in the past, we pretty much put that on the shoulders and the very capable shoulders of our general manager. But as things sort of began to accelerate, we really said, you know, this is something we ought to be doing collaboratively between the board and the management team. So beginning in 2014, we met as an entire board and management team, went through a very intensive look at what was changing in the environment, where our opportunities were, where we saw threats coming from, and eventually narrowed down what we called a few critical strategic initiatives. So these would be the kinds of things that wouldn't happen if you simply went along with day-to-day operations. And they required us to set aside some time, attention, and hours and often resources to prepare for them. So we pretty much limited ourselves to no more than 5 what we call strategic initiatives. Well, we've continued to update that, to review that, to go through modified further planning sessions over the years. And last September and October, we met 2 mornings with the whole management team and board to update our strategic planning process. And we came out with 5 new strategic initiatives or updated strategic initiatives that we'd like to report back to you about in terms of what they are and what we're doing at this time. So that moves us to the next one.
Yeah. So now we'd like to give you a brief overview of what those 5 initiatives are. The first one, which is definitely one that we've been looking at for a long time, is what do we do with our facilities? And we realized in this last year that really our campus needs a refresh. We need to focus on the space that is here. So we have engaged a project team. Currently, we're in what we refer to as a feasibility and due diligence stage. So there's an awful lot of information that we have to gather. We have to gather survey information. We have to take a look at programmatically, what do we have right now? We've got to look at what regulations there are. All of that information to pull together so that then we can start to figure out what are the building blocks that we can move forward with. And I just want to highlight the project team that we've got on this, because we're really trying to tap into some really amazing local talent and local skills. Architecture here based in Ashland, Chris Brown, who's the lead architect. He's also pulled in Carlos Delgado, who's been really pivotal in doing a lot of the renovations here on the campus before us. They are working collaboratively on this project. We've also engaged Ashland Group, who's out of Central Point. They are really working as project managers, so to make sure that the process keeps moving forward and that we understand that we're meeting the milestones that we need to meet. We've also engaged on a sort of much more national level, the National Cooperative Grocers. They're really experts on the nitty-gritty of how a store is made, how big are shelves, how do you start to set those up? And so we really want to tap into them so that we're getting the best information possible. And last but not least, we're trying to bring in our Ashland Food Co-op. This initial project team consists of Tracy Kaiser, Barry Haynes, and myself. We will be expanding this to include some owners and additional board directors as we start to move into the next phases of really trying to figure out what's next. But it's an exciting time, and we're looking forward to owners getting engaged in the next phases. And next.
So the second initiative is we call enhancing the employee experience. It's really a recognition that the co-op's employees are really the key factor contributing to the co-op's success. As Mark said, almost 30% of the cost of doing business is what we give to our pay our employees in salaries and benefits. So we thought it was very important as we're looking forward to have a strategic initiative that really captures this. And the way we try to define this is to say that our aim is really to be considered the best employer in the Rogue Valley. That kind of captures it in a broad brush way. So we have an initiative team that has the the previous human resources manager and acting human resources manager for the last year, Sharon Van Duker. Brian Crane is a manager in the store, and then Melissa and me. As we laid out this initiative, we didn't foresee the fact that we would be in the process of hiring a new general manager. So that put a little bit of a crimp in it. And we thought we'd have a human resources manager on board already while we were doing this. And so that didn't happen, although it is happening very shortly. So as we conceptualized our work, it's really to prepare for the onboarding of those two key positions for the employee experience. And then also as we go forward, we want to incorporate the employees, the collective bargaining unit, AFSEA, the Ashland Food Co-op Employee Alliance. Thank you. So that will be coming on in the future. What we've done to prepare for the work of this committee is part of it is what is the total compensation package that we offer versus others, the salary and benefits, because the co-op offers substantial benefits that aren't necessarily offered in other grocery stores in the area. So we've done some benchmarking of that or data collection of that, and also used the National Co-op Grocers Co-op livable wage and benefits model. It's a very interesting model that takes into account all of the things that we spend money on, and then how much it costs, and then how does what sort of a wage and benefits package needs to be to meet that. And then the other item that we talked about adding as we move forward would be look at how we can enhance the onboarding and the team building experiences for employees at the co-op. So that's the second initiative. Third is.
Oh, and I have to stand up. I can't really.
Talking ad hoc. Okay, so I'm Joanna, and my passion is gardening and food and co-ops. I moved to Oregon when I was 20 years old in 1977 and got rolling then. Imagine that. And so I was very pleased and honored when Tracy Fisher, who's our marketing department manager, said, do you want to help us put together some farmers focus groups? So they had been doing focus groups with owners in here. And one of the things they heard from everybody was, we want to see produce and products that are local. So I started calling farmers. I have relationships with a lot of different farmers in our area. And then while that was coming together, then the whole strategic initiative thing happened, and there was a committee formed for farmer growers. And on that committee is Joe Reyes, who's our inspired produce manager, Ed Clausen, and Abby Lazaro, and myself. So we had a lot of discussions and thoughts and brainstorming about what would help the farmers. And thanks to Ed, we also allocated some money to that. Then we had the farmers focus groups in wintertime, because that's the only time, farmers can get together with you. And it was interesting because some of the things we thought would help them were actually not what they were having problems with. But sitting together at a table, that's engagement piece. Some of the farmers together figured out how to help each other with like transportation into Ashland from out in rural areas. Change the slide. And let's see what else. Let me look at my notes for a second. And so that's continuing. So with their input and the committee and, all the things we have to do, we're going to be working on how can we help. And so the other piece to this is some of us went to a big national co-op conference in Sacramento over the past weekend. And there was an important panel that talked about the importance of small farmers, that they're small enough that they can't get picked up by distributors, for example, and who's carrying their stuff. So there's a produce manager from Briar Patch in Grass Valley who's been networking and teaching and working with nonprofits. So we heard from all different people on this panel about what they've been doing and their challenges. And so the key piece that came from that was building relationships and solidarity. Because one of this man, David Benson's visions is that new farmers are struggling. Latino farmers in California that are organic, they're small, they're struggling. And also, why would you want to do it? A lot of our farmers in our area are actually getting closer to retirement age. So that is the importance of all of this that we create to keep those relationships, solidarity, and forward movement. And go ahead, put one more. And so I'm just going to mention the names of some of these farmers, which is Hi Ho Produce with Chi and Michelle, and Don Hipping, Siskiyou Seeds, and what else was on there? I hope
Vince and Mary
Whistling Duck,
Susie.
and Susie Fry Family Farm. So, and the neat thing about the relationship building is it turned out that Susie and Susie Fry's daughter went to school with Joe Reyes, our produce manager. So they have a whole different relationship on texting each other and saying, hey, do you have corn? Whatever it is. So I'm really excited about all this. And it's important because this goes back, we want to talk tradition of what our co-op values were to begin with, which was to make sure that we had affordable, healthy, and local food as much as possible. Thanks for listening.
So one of our other initiatives is community engagement. And this, we're really looking at how do we as a co-op engage with our community in a variety of different ways, and not just as owners, but beyond the owners. So how can we start to connect in with some of the other social and environmental groups that are here in the community? Larry Cooper, who is on the board, is sort of leading that charge, and we look forward to having some more information from him about where we're going in the next year. And then Mark, you're going to talk a little bit about co-op economy.
Yeah, so the co-op economy initiative and effort, this is something that had been explored in the past, and we're looking to try to revive that. I would say it's kind of in the very early phases of defining what this could and should be and getting organized. The intent is to help support and pursue a dialogue, given our belief in the cooperative business model and the impact and benefits it can have. Where can we either financially or just through guidance and partnership support a broader cooperative movement? So it feeds into a lot of what Joanna was talking about potentially. And then also just, you know, should we be doing more with World Credit and some of the other entities out there? So we're intending to kind of bring together some voices, a bit of a steering committee, and try to explore where this could go. So really kind of a long-term effort that frankly also kind of gets sidetracked a little bit because there's always seems to be other urgent priorities that pop up and distract folks. But the intention is to really build community around this topic area.
So one of the significant portions of the vision of the co-op is our sustainability. And so we have a sustainability coordinator who's going to present to us on where we are.
Hi there. My name is Chris Byrne. I took over this year as sustainability coordinator. So I'd like to thank my predecessors for leaving me some pretty big shoes to fill and to help with the snapshot of the past projects that they left and some of the future projects that we have going on. So as far as our solar power project in 2021, 197 kilowatts array was installed at Oak Street Tank and Steel. That increased our total capacity to 248 kilowatts, which is significant. And that's thanks in part to a program by the city of Ashland called virtual net metering, where the electrons produced over there across town are credited to our energy production. So the first full year online was 2022. And we were able to produce 43.7% of our total electricity. So looking forward, we'll be continuing to look for additional opportunities to produce all our own electricity from renewable sources. AFC continues to partner with federal, state, and local governments and organizations such as the EPA's Green Chill and Green Power Partnerships and Energy Trust of Oregon, which I'd like to highlight now for us. The ETO Energy Trust of Oregon Strategic Energy Management Program provides funding for an internship to write and implement an annual energy plan, which identifies operations and maintenance projects to lower natural gas and electricity use. Participation in this program has resulted in natural gas use reductions of over 10%, and I expect that to be more once the 2022 numbers are finalized. And that's since the program began in 2019, our participation in the program in 2019. Both of these, the other exciting news on the natural gas front is that while the low-hanging fruit from participating in that program is gone, these we have significant reductions that are potential by moving to induction cooking. The first thing that we did, we started in the staff break room kitchen. We replaced that burner with an induction cooktop like the one that you see at the top left. And the classroom kitchen, this dinosaur in the back, is on its way out. And both of those conversions, well, one of the intentions with this is not just to remove it, but also for it to be a demonstration to the community of how induction, in my opinion, as a cook, is actually a superior experience. So it's not the old electric ranges that we all dread, moving into. This is actually better than cooking on gas, and that comes from personal experience. And both of these we were able to do with funding from that ETO program that I just discussed. The milestones for that, we received money for that. It was $4,600 last year. It's up to $10,000 a year. So that's going to fund that burner conversion, and it did for the one in the break room. And then the prepared foods department is also in the process of speccing the equipment to replace the ranges and burners, the tilt skillets where soups and sauces are made, ovens, and even the hot bar warmers where you self-serve your food from is going to go to induction system, which right now is heated with hot water, but it will go to electricity. While this increase in the electricity demand, it increases the electricity demand in one aspect. We're expecting upgrades in the HVAC and the refrigeration systems to make up a lot of these, to make back some gains, so that we are on track, I believe, to meet our 2030 goal of carbon neutrality. There are so many other programs that this co-op does. One that's near and dear to my heart is food waste reduction reclamation, where we provide it to people in need and divert it from the waste stream. So many things that we can talk about. You can look for details of that in the forthcoming sustainability report. My email is sustainability@ashlandfood.coop. And again, my name is Chris Byrne. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
It's just amazing, all the stuff that we do. So next I'd like to have Erica talk a little bit about AFC Gives, which is one of our committees and our philanthropic arm of the co-op.
It's our philanthropic arm, and there are kind of two main components to that philanthropic arm. One is the community grants program, which has been in place for quite a while here at the co-op. We, as a committee, review applications from eligible 501c3s or projects that have an eligible fiscal sponsor in the community for anything up to $2,000. And some of them are small, some are $2,000, and we serve a wide range of initiatives around the entire Rogue Valley. We focus on four main areas when we're issuing our community grants, and those are food and supportive services for people in need, education focused on food, nutrition, or health, environmental stewardship, and education on the environment and sustainability. And when we're judging all of these applications and choosing how to apply our funds, we're always looking for the equity lens when making those decisions. So this year we gave away over $25,000 to 17 different organizations in the Rogue Valley, and they span across all those initiatives. There's some crossover where some hit multiples. A couple highlights of that. One that you may be familiar with or recognize is the compost bins at the farmers market. It's something that's sponsored by the food co-op. We sponsored a number of educational garden projects. Multiples of these organizations are projects that are focusing on youth education in gardens, community education in gardens, getting folks' hands in the dirt and understanding the process of organic gardening and farming. And that's both in the public and private sector. There are some public schools that are benefiting from this, as well as private. And then we also supported a lot of food access projects this year, different initiatives that are making sure that families in need around the valley have access not only to food, but to resources that connect them with also credit services and advising on ways to make sure that everyone has access to what they need. So that was our community grants program. The other arm of the philanthropic, or the other aspect of our philanthropic program at the co-op, is the Change for Good program, which you're all familiar with. That's the Roundup program at the registers. That actually started back in fall of 2020, following the fires here in the valley, and we've kept it up ever since. And again, that goes through a review process with our AFC Gives committee. We receive applications, we review them, and then if they qualify under the stipulations that we have in place, we want to make it as low barrier as possible. Again, we're looking for qualified 501c3s. We set it out to have a democratic vote, and all of you just voted on this in the election, and we take the top 10 organizations based on votes. And so we're happy to announce we've just came in, KS Wild, Our Family Farms, the High School Culinary Arts Program, Rogue River Watershed Council, Friends of Cascade Siskiyou National Monument, Peace House, Stream Smart, Rogue Climate, Ashland Climate Collaborative, and Rogue Action Center. And I want to point out that 4 of those that you see in bold up here are brand new. They have not been part of our Roundup program before. So part of what we're excited about, in addition to raising funds, is raising awareness. Every time one of these organizations is part of the Roundup program, they have an opportunity to table out front of the co-op, connect with community members, get their brand out there, help educate the community about what they're doing. So that's an added benefit of this program. We've also seen significant growth in this program. This year, we are 40% over what we raised last year, year to date for the Roundup programs overall. And at this time, we're averaging about $5,800 a month, which again is 40% over the average of last year. So we're excited to see this program continue to grow and look forward to continuing.
So I believe we have, before we do the owner's forum, Larry Cooper, who is in charge of the community engagement initiative, does have some slides to share. And so Tracy,
I can actually just, if you want, I can just speak to it.
Yeah.
I mean, so initiative, community engagement, and he also shares that initiative with Derek, who is our meat department manager, and myself. And Larry just really wanted to express, he's very excited that we're back in person in our classroom, doing wellness as well as cooking classes for our community. Also getting back into the outreach and the community engagement piece is we have our demos back up and running 3 days a week. And if you haven't met him yet, Will on the Grill is amazing indoors and outdoors, and he's promoting and educating a lot of our local products, wineries, and our PFD, which is our kitchen products that we make in-house. The other piece to round out the engagement with our community is we hired an outreach coordinator. And this individual started with us in March, and you may have met Erin. Erin is outside our store on Fridays, getting communication out to our community and our owners about camp programs, owner benefits, and just events up and coming. Some other key things, and I apologize, I have kind of a raspy voice, so I'm not projecting very loud. Some other key spaces that Larry really wanted to point out is in 2023, we really elevated a lot of our sponsorship dollars to really support community engagement with our youth. They're our next generation co-op owner, and we want to make sure that we are present in our high school, our middle schools, our charters, our private schools. How can we support forests, food forests for our kids so they understand and learn about nutrition and the importance behind it? Also, really focusing on anything that has to do with getting our kids outside. So Ashland Devo was part of our Change for Good. We've done a lot of sponsorships with them, an amazing program to get kids out on the mountain bikes. And they have a great board and a great leader there. I've watched my daughter go through some really beautiful things of independence with that program as well. Other things as far as getting more involved, Truth to Power, amazing leader at the high school. His name is Shane, and we love participating and supporting from sponsorships, in-kind donations, getting them in the classroom, anything that happens at the high school, again, elevating connection to co-op to our future co-op owner. Other areas, you know, we really want people to know that we understand the importance of pets in our community and what they give back to us. So we have been elevating some sponsorships really to help, like Feral Cat Coalitions of Oregon. We do a lot with quotas, and know that they're on our radar as well. They are part of our community and growing. And making sure we don't forget about our theater and arts. So that's definitely a focus for 2023 as well. And Ashland Folk Collective, if any of you have experienced any of their events at a 5-family farm, amazing. Really see what's happening from a local community perspective. And we are one of their key sponsorships for their summer series. So again, check those out at the 5-family farms Ashland Folk Collective. The other thing that Larry really wanted to boast about was birthday. It was really kind of one of our big events, getting back out in the community besides our 50th anniversary party. And Larry participated, and he said he just really sat back and really wanted to engage with the community and the owners, and even followed up after the event to see the experience from our community. And he really just felt like the connection that we were making, the sustainability messaging that was happening, our CAN programs, just again, really elevating our education piece to our community, and really felt that the Earth Day event was definitely spot on for the co-op to get communication out there, and he wants to see more of those in 2024. So in a wrap up, Larry just expressed that he's just really excited to be part of this initiative, and he really wants to see where we can take it in 2024. And his big key things is getting more of those events out in our community, drive that education, sponsorships to our local youth, get them outside, get them eating nutritional food. And again, really excited. And please take a look at our website to see what we're offering for classrooms over the summer months as well. We are back and we are open fully. And Malia, who is in the back of the room, was in the back of the room, sorry. Malia is our education coordinator. If any of you are interested in teaching a class or know someone that would like to teach a class, please reach out to education@ashlandfood.coop. That's it.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yes.
So I think I'm hoping that what you guys have seen a little bit is that we have a really involved board. We each sort of have a passion that we try and bring to this co-op and share with our owners why this co-op means a lot to us. And so now's a really good time for us to hear from you about questions that you might have for us as the board, but also just to share, if you would like, a little bit about what brings you here to the co-op and what you'd like to share with us as a community. If you would like to speak, I would appreciate it if you could clearly say your name. We'd also just love to hear, how long have you been a member of the co-op? Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question or share? Okay.
My name is Jennifer Gibbs. I've been a member for about 16 years, almost 16 years. I want to thank you so much for the work that you do, and especially the sustainability piece sounds phenomenal. And I'm just curious, is there an easy way for owners to look at like financial statements? Like if it's a nonprofit, you can look at the financial statements of an organization, but as an owner, that's never been clear if there's an easy way to look at, like, you know, the past 20 years financial, because I'm just curious of like looking at the reserves through the years and kind of what reserves are now. And I'm a finance person, so that's why I'm curious.
I'm going to ask either the treasurer or GM to respond to that.
Yeah, we don't post those. We should talk about, I don't know, historically why we haven't, but we don't post the audited financials, but we could certainly talk about sharing this.
Yeah, is there a policy, do you know, on sharing those with owners?
I don't think there's a policy.
Okay.
We do have a yearly budget review that's part of our board meetings. And so we could go through some of the old board meeting notes and get some of that information. So we do try and discuss it in our regular monthly meetings. There is also every month a treasurer's finance director's report that gives sort of the month by month or quarter by quarter information.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily have it just open without a request.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to see it just as the prices have gone up, and yeah, just be interesting to see like the different, you know, over the years, kind of like what's happened to reserves and how, you know, so when dividends are given 100%, does that mean nothing's considered after reserves? Is that true?
No, so
okay.
I mean there's a fair amount that goes into that, but the dividend is calculated from earnings from member sales, so non-member sales.
Oh, my good. Okay.
Just retain, you're going to retained earnings, right? So
Yeah.
The cash and investment balance that has been built up to a substantial level, was decades of retained earnings.
And do you know that number? What is the?
Sorry.
The cash and investment balance is probably just over 7 million.
Okay. Yeah. And I come to the co-op because everything you just talked about, I love it so much. And the grassroots, why the co-op is here. Every time I go into, everywhere I travel, the first thing I look for is where is the co-op, and I like it because I know they're looking out for. I know what to expect, and I know they're looking out for what the ingredients are, and supporting the farmers. I so appreciate what Joanna was talking about, the farmer initiative too. I so appreciate like bringing the people to the table. I appreciate bringing the employees to the table if there's issues with employees and figuring out why they're leaving or why they're staying. So yeah. Yes.
I'm Heather Marple, and I've been a member since 1980, which makes it 43 years. Yeah, back when it was on the corner there by the gas station, and we didn't have a lot of employees and did a lot of the work ourselves. I come to the co-op because of the mixing of people, and that if I go to the co-op, I know I'm going to run into somebody I know and can hang out and catch up and talk. And that was what was hard during COVID, that we couldn't sit around and meet each other. I also come because of the emphasis on organic food, and that I go into some big stores and I'm overwhelmed with stuff that I don't even want to be buying. So it simplifies things to have that emphasis. One thing I'm curious about is, in the past there was talk about the co-op owning some land over there and building housing for employees. Is that anything that's
so we currently own a piece of property that's just on the other side of the railroad tracks, kind of behind the lumber yard. We don't currently have any plans for it. We purchased that piece of property because it was a really good investment. It's sort of better than money sitting in a bank. But we don't necessarily have plans for it right now. It is collateral, it's an asset. And over the course of the next year or so, we'll be trying to figure out how best to utilize that for the entire organization.
I'll share that I've been a member of the co-op for about 6 years now, and moving up to Oregon from California. I couldn't believe the fresh produce and just wonderful abundance of food in the area, and I've always felt that a loving home, the heart of a loving home is the kitchen, and in a lot of ways I feel like the co-op is the heart of the town, and you can come and run into just about anyone that's coming to do a co-op, and I go for the food and support the community, and a number of things that I've heard here raised some questions. I'm a little bit curious what the percentage of non-member purchases per year are. I'm not sure if that was in your.
To about 24% of sales this past year.
And that's pretty steady. It's usually around 75% of our sales are owner sales.
And was that through the pandemic as well?
It dipped. It was still above 70%, but it did dip, and I think it's OSF visitor traffic impacted them. That's the expectation.
Yeah. And I think the land opportunity, that is a solid investment, and I'll be curious to find out what happens. What's going to happen with that as well.
I'm sorry, I want to add to that. Do we know an average from NCG about owner versus non-owner sales of other co-ops?
It really depends on the market. Urban markets will have a higher percentage of non-owner sales than us, and we're in rural areas, so it just kind of depends.
That makes sense.
I do want to take a moment and introduce Kevin Bendow, who's sitting here in the front row. And I just wanted to see if you wanted to say a little something about, one, why you've been a member of the co-op, and but also why you joined the board.
Sitting all day. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, fellow members. I have been a co-op member for Papa Helga's tenure of 21 years almost. My journey started when I became an employee here back in 2003, late 2003. And for me, this is a bit of a coming home moment to be back on this board. This is my first time as a voting member. So I was an employee representative for 3 years of my time here. 3 out of the 4 years of my time here that I had a chance to work along one of the other employees who had to vote for employee status, and the two of us would collaborate, would make sure that we came to consensus for our staff in regards to how the board was moving at that time. I had the pleasure of being here, sitting as a fly in the wall, so to speak, when we went from a company, as Helga remembers it, young and new and still finding our oats in this new building or this current building, and going from being in a deficit to becoming a profitable company. And so I've had a chance to see the organization grow beautifully ever since. I am here because I want to serve. And so as a coming home in my last 20 years away from here, I have been gleaning as much business acumen and leadership acumen that I can and that I could for the opportunity for this to happen. I didn't know it was going to be today, but I am here regardless because I believe in the mission and the organization. I believe in where it has gone, where it has come from. When Helga was working probably in bulk back then over on 3rd Street, to when she was actually helping move the food from that building to this building, all the way to now, and where leadership has taken it and has brought it to this current day. So I am here to support and to enhance in my version of that, and to really be a part of the success and to really grow this. And I have to say this, I actually came on board because I wanted to work with this lady who is now leaving. But ultimately I'm here because I have experienced the values. I have gone to, when I was an employee here, I went to various co-op national conferences, had a chance to see how other co-ops around the country and Canada were representing themselves and how they are working. And through those years, I went to, I think, 2 or 3, and had a chance to go to Atlanta separately and visit that one there, or one of them there, that we're doing it right. We're kind of at the peak and have maintained that. And a lot of other co-ops, and not necessarily food co-ops, but just co-ops in general, have recognized this one location as a success story amongst all co-ops. So whether it's grains and agriculture to food, this is an amazing organization. And so for me to be a part of it, to be elected, I'm grateful. So thank you. I look forward to the next 10 years. So yeah.
So we're sort of wrapping up for our time. I just wanted to check in and see if anyone else has any questions or comments. And I also just want to say, immediately following this, we are going to be having our monthly June board meeting. You are all welcome to attend. It is a much more structured presentation of a variety of different agenda items, but we would love to have you there if you can. Does anyone else have anything else? Yes.
I would be curious in the structure of the co-op, in terms of the finances, how much does each department take in? Like, I have a feeling that the preparation of food here is a big part of the income, but I would like to know more about it.
Can you speak to that in general, Barry?
How the preparation of the food is a part of the income of the co-op overall?
Where do the different parts of departments come out in terms of generating income?
Yeah. Well, I don't have exact figures. I know that the produce department as a single department, if you break all our grocery departments out into frozen, cooler, center store groceries, bulk, bear in mind, they're all managed by one person, but they are separate departments. Produce department is a number one at about 21% of store sales.
And the deli? You don't know.
Deli is, it's not that, maybe 13 to 15% of store sales, but also the, because it's scratch deli, also the highest in labor as well. So not as far as a margin minus labor, not a gigantic contributor because it provides so many jobs. Yeah.
Where does the bulk fall in that lineup?
The bulk's about 13, 15% as well.
So it's similar to the deli. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good question.
Thanks. Good question, Helga.
Anyone else? Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming again. There's one last slide, just saying thank you for everyone for coming. And like I said, we'd love to have you join our next meeting. There is, for those of you who are here in person, I'm sorry for those who are not, there is food and there are drinks. We'd like for you to, we always want to share in our bounty. So please make yourself at home. And we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Just an acknowledgement of Julia Dwyer for her amazing leadership of this board this year, who will be leaving us in that position, and to Ed Clausen, who also has so much incredible wisdom that he's shared with new members and those that have returned. We'd like to thank you both for your service and to this co-op and to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Do we have a little like 5, 10, 15-minute break in between?
Yep.
What's the?
Let's say 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Are we gonna be in here?
So, how much do you have? Mr. Hughes? How big is that? I think that was just
yeah. That's good money for the program. Yeah, just money. We're not saying that we do any of the work. Oh, I know. Yeah. We're just reporting on the money. Yeah. Thank you.
a big chunk of it. To the graciousness of the U.S. government.
Like with Legos or with chemo or.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I think that's fantastic. Sounds like reality.
It's good to know you held it. I think it might be wellness.
Julie, what do we want to do? Seeking money?
I'm just gonna make a little bit of a couple of these here and do like. Anyway, it's good to hear there, maybe the board can spread out a little bit. Does that make sense? Yeah. Oh, really?
Hey, Bob, we'll see you later, man. Okay, see you, Richard. Yeah. You say hello to our That's great. Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, I should, now we got it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Yes, I find it. I was saying, we started Yes. Yeah. Let me see if I can use that. Okay.
Kennedy.
When we're all set.
The demographic is very small. Yeah. Yeah, so I think. Yeah. Down the road. It's. Near one of those.
You're running the show, are you?
Bigger.